please note that all the information and materials provided as a part of this training are for informational, educational, and inspirational purposes only. Always consult with your healthcare provider for recommendations and guidance related to your medical symptoms or condition.
Welcome to my free training, Must-Do Habits to Lower Inflammation, Cool Down, and Feel Better Now. The strategies that really work. You are in the perfect place if you are ready to take charge of your health because you want to feel better in your mind and body, and you want to do that quickly. You're in the perfect place if you're frustrated by conflicting advice. So much is out there. And you keep falling back into your old habits that you know are leading to weight gain or brain fog or increased pain or any other malady that you can possibly come up with. You're in the perfect place if you need someone who knows exactly what they're talking about to take you by the hand and show you and tell you exactly what to do. And you are in the perfect place if you know in your heart of hearts that it's time to take action and address something that is absolutely essential to your well-being.
Remember, very important, you must watch at least 90% of this training in its entirety, all parts, to be able to be granted access to all three of your bonus gifts. Okay. So I'm very serious about my work. I'm very serious about changing people's lives and helping people. And you got to watch this information for it to rock your world, like I know it can. And so you can't fast forward through, you can't cheat, you can't just, not watch it. You have to watch it. And we have this platform allows us to know that. And so you've got to watch at least 90%. And you must click the complete and continue button after each part to be able to go to the next section. So it will not register that you have watched it all unless you click that complete and continue button and watch at least 90%. All right.
So what are we going to do today? By joining me for this free training, you're going to learn what inflammation is and the difference between healthy inflammation and toxic inflammation. You're going to learn which of your habits are driving this toxic inflammation and which of your habits are helping it or assuaging that toxic inflammation. You're going to learn the 3 specific lifestyle strategies that overwhelming solid science is telling us are incredibly effective at calming that toxic inflammation down. And you're going to get a detailed plan of action. I'll go through that in this training. Detailed plan of action that will give you kind of the ideal, perfect, black and white prescription for moving forward. And number 4, you're going to learn why building these habits into your day-to-day living can be transformative for your well-being, for all aspects of your health. This training is not for you if you are someone that already wakes up right in the morning and you feel energized and you feel like you have incredible clarity of thought and you don't have any pain, you feel super healthy, you don't have to take any prescription medications, you don't have any diagnosed clinical diseases, right? No chronic diseases. Because if you fall into that camp, you're probably already doing all of these things. So no need for you to keep listening. This training is not for you if you are someone that believes that your health destiny is solely determined by your genes. This training is not for you if you're someone that has a fixed mindset and self-improvement is not important to you. And this training is not for you if you're not interested in learning about exactly what I tell my husband and my children and my closest friends and family when they call me and they have a health concern, they're worried about a chronic disease, they have some, their energy's off or their mood is off. Right? Because this is the same advice almost across the board that I give those that mean the most to me and that I love the most when they contact me about a health issue or a problem they're facing related to their health. Okay? Now, because I know what this message, that's part of this free training, can do for your health and quality of life, absolutely rock your world in such a good way, I'm doing everything I can to incentivize you to watch to the end. And if you do, you're going to get actually 3 special bonuses. One is going to be a printable, really user-friendly, detailed plan of action, not just outlining. I'm talking to you, telling you step by step what you ultimately need to do in your life to fully leverage each of these 3 lifestyle strategies for quieting that damaging inflammation. Okay, so that's bonus number 1. Bonus number 2, you're going to get exclusive free access to a course, I'll call it a mini course, I recently created to teach people about the power of their breath. Not only breathing properly, but how you can tap into very simple breathing practices to improve your mental well-being, your emotional well-being, your cognitive well-being, and your health, right, of the body. And it's going to include the practices that I do in my own life. And there's this 3rd special bonus that I'm not going to tell you till you get to the very end. So further incentive, right? Because you should want to know what that is to keep watching. All right. Before we begin, I want to share a bit about who I am, how did Dr. Ann get here, and also share a very recent story in my life where this particular message was very, very timely, and how it intersected in my life in a very, very personal way. So I think that there are going to be some people watching this that don't know anything about me. Perhaps some of you do. Great. And bear with me while I share with others that don't know who in the heck is Dr. Ann. So I am a physician. I'm an MD, and I'm a physician that specifically specializes in wellness education. So my whole focus as a physician is teaching people what they can do through diet and lifestyle to be as healthy as possible, right? I knew from the age of 4 that I wanted to be a doctor. I'm from this ridiculously long lineage, heritage of physicians and scientists in my family. Grandfathers, great-grandfathers, great-great-great-grandfathers, fathers, sister, my husband, cousins, children, right? They're about, over 6 or 7 generations, about 23 members of my family, if you include my mom's side and my father's side, that went to medical school and that are clinicians. So I'm convinced that health and medicine are literally a part of my DNA. And I was a teenager. Knowing that I was going to have this plan to be a doctor, I became passionately interested in nutrition. And I think I was so interested in it because I realized, oh my gosh, this is something that I can do, and I can feel it, and I can see the changes in my own body. And of course, I was reading enough science even then to see that that was the case. And I ended up studying nutrition in college, knowing I wanted to go to medical school. If you study what you love, you're always going to make super great grades. And anyway, so I got my undergraduate degree in food science and human nutrition. Then I went on to medical school, and to my shock and my surprise, I ended up just doing ridiculously well in medical school. I was not anticipating this, but I ended up graduating as the valedictorian of my class. I received almost every academic honor that they give at my particular medical school. And I'm sharing this with you, not that I'm trying to toot my horn, but because I want to convey to you that I am a credentialed expert. I know what I'm talking about. And I've devoted, essentially the last 25 years just studying nutrition and lifestyle and how it impacts our health. Okay, there's so many, quackos now, that influencers that people are listening to from social media that speak with such authority, that speak with such conviction, like they are truly experts, and they are not. And for those of us that really are the experts and the experts, it makes us crazy. So I want you to have the confidence and the comfort that you can trust what I'm telling you. It is evidence-based. The only way Dr. Ann rolls is through that science, right? Evidence-based, the best science, right? Okay. Now, after I went to medical school, the world was my oyster, and I ended up, I'm not going to tell you that story, but I ended up in primary care, and I fell in love with it. And I had a bread and butter, very robust, very successful primary care practice, and I did that for about 20 years. And as I evolved in my practice, it became very, very clear to me, and we had the science flooding us, telling us this too, that most all the things I was seeing in my clinical practice could be prevented through diet and lifestyle. And remember, I had that passionate interest in those things, particularly the nutrition piece. And I noticed when I talked to my patients about it, they loved it. They were just like all ears, and they loved it. And I also noticed that when I did share those things with them, it would empower them, and they'd come back and they'd say, oh my gosh, Dr. Ann, I started doing the exercise regimen, or I started eating these foods you were telling me, and I just can't believe what it's done for me. Anyway, so I saw an opportunity and I took this massive leap of faith, and I walked away from that very, very, successful, thriving clinical practice to devote myself to wellness education. And that was 23, 24 years ago. And boy, what a ride, a joyful, amazing, crazy ride it has been. In that time, I've used every possible channel I could to get the message out. I used to have a recurrent dream where I am on a rooftop and I have a huge megaphone that reaches everyone in the world, and I'm just screaming out all these things that I know that people could easily do that could be transformative for how they feel and whether or not they're going to die, in a month or 10 years or anyway. And so what did I do in those 23 years? I wrote 6 books. Several of them are best-selling, award-winning. I've delivered hundreds of speeches on stages. I'm a professional motivational speaker. I've done it all over the country. I've even gone out of the country doing my speaking. I've been quoted and featured in numerous media outlets, including the Dr. Oz Show, Oprah and Friends Radio, Time Magazine, U.S. News and World Report, Prevention, and on and on and on, many others. I did radio very regularly in the Midwest and the Southeast for years. Love radio. Anyways, I used every possible channel I could to preach the gospel of healthy living through nutrition and lifestyle, because I know what it can do for people, right? Anyway, so that's my story there. What about this whole inflammation thing in my life? Well, about 6 months ago, I dislocated my hip, and I did that myself. I mean, I was doing yoga. I love yoga. It was a very advanced pose. I'm a pusher. I'm someone that pushes 20% beyond my limit. That was a mistake. I've learned from that mistake. And to dislocate your hip is a really big deal. It went right back in, but on the way out and on the way in, unfortunately, it damages structures. So Dr. Ann is suddenly facing a very, very significant injury with some very significant damage that she's got to heal. And it was extremely painful. Pain is caused by inflammation. So suddenly I doubled down. The things I'm sharing with you today are things, first of all, I've been doing, practicing all these things forever, but I really, really doubled down and was doing these things as almost as perfectly as, I would say as perfectly as I humanly could, right? So I can attest to their power. In the last 6 months, there's no question they have dramatically helped me with my pain, and there's no question they've dramatically helped me even with my healing. Okay. The other thing is, I had a child about a year ago contact me who had some sort of semi-ominous lab work that clearly indicated that he was not, that he had some excess inflammation, and that he needed to really wake up. And he admitted to me, although he's very knowledgeable and is really good with exercise, he admitted to me that his diet, he had a lot of stress and his diet was not great. And sure enough, I just sent him the same information, and completely within 6 weeks had dropped like 17 pounds. That abnormal lab work was totally resolved, and he's been sailing healthily on since that time. Anyway, so the message is powerful. It's relevant in my own life, and I promise I know what I'm talking about. Okay. So the other thing is, because I have been so relentless in what I do for the last 23 years with books and speeches and media appearances and on and on and on, I've had the opportunity to frankly engage with, I would guesstimate, hundreds of thousands of people, right? I mean, there were 30,000 people on a radio show at least, maybe more than that at a time. And anyway, as a result of that, naturally, I have received lots of wonderful testimonials back from people. And weekly I get messages, and it may be secondhand, like someone sees me on the street and says something, or writes me an email, or says something to my husband, because a lot of his patients, or they know me and they follow my stuff. Anyway, so I share that because these are people just like you. These are people just like you. Some of them had enormous health challenges, and I've seen it over and over and over and over. That is actually the fuel for my passion engine, is just seeing what these people do when they're simply given the information, given the proper guidance, and given just enough motivation that they can actually take action. So I thought it'd be fun to read a couple of testimonials from some of my students. So this is from Alexandra Adams. I have dropped several sizes, sleep better, stay alert, have not missed any work in the last 2 months for sickness, been working out daily except for Sunday, and doing it in the morning before work, of all things. I get up in the morning, spend time with God, and then jump up and work out. I am loving it. Dr. Ann, just loving it. Thank you, Alexandra Adams. And from Karen Snow. Your course was a true eye-opener, and your presentation was phenomenal. You brought it from a scientific level into a real world, real people, I can do this kind of way. With much anticipation, I look forward to eating up your resources wholeheartedly. There are no coincidences in life. I'm so glad our paths crossed. I actually met Karen in the dog park, right? And one thing many people share with me that is hard for me to see is that I have this really unusual kind of uncanny knack of taking things that seem complicated, science that seem complicated, and making it like really easy to grasp and to kind of sink your teeth into permanently. A couple more things for a transition to these 3 lifestyle strategies, to the content of this free training. If you are still watching, you have proven to me that you have what it takes to take action. Because at the end of the day, really getting healthier is 100% about taking action, right? And you don't have to, conquer the world tomorrow. It's about one step. It can be a baby step. It can even be a micro commitment, right? A micro commitment is something that is so easy for you to do that you can't fail. Because even micro changes, right? Micro commitments when it comes to your health can have a meaningful and make a meaningful impact, right? Perfection is not required. It's actually the enemy. And all you need to do is take some sort of action, and action right now. And at this point, the most important action to take is that you have an open heart and that you have an open and curious mind. That's all that's required right now, okay? So, why is this training so pivotal for your life? If you don't already know it, inflammation is the primary driver of almost every single chronic disease, the primary driver of almost all health maladies. 8 of the top 10 leading causes of death are inextricably linked to inflammation. It's heart disease. It is all the metabolic diseases. It is weight gain. It is obesity. It is fatty liver disease. It is metabolic syndrome. It is some cancers. It is dementia. It is neurodegenerative conditions. Of course, it's type 2 diabetes. It's prediabetes because those are metabolic issues. It is asthma. It is allergies. It is autoimmune conditions. It's virtually all the mental health conditions. Mental health conditions are, inflammation in the brain is a part of all of them. Okay, it is poor stress resiliency. It is, oh my God, I'm like chronically stressed. I'm stressed all the time, right? Because inflammation really makes you prone to what we call this kind of toxic stress. We'll be talking about that later. What else? It's about pretty much anything you could name, right? Poor energy, pain. All pain is caused by inflammation, right? So that's really important to understand. That's why this training has such impact, and that's why I'm so passionate about making sure you're grasping it and learning this. The second thing that is really important to know is that you have enormous control over that inflammation. Obviously, I wouldn't be doing this free training. You have massive control over the level of this toxic, this damaging inflammation that drives diseases. You have control over that in your own body, okay? So you are the driver of that train, right? You are the captain of that ship. My job is going to be to motivate you, inspire you, I'm good at that, and to teach you in a way that you can understand it, the key steps to take to calm this toxic inflammation down. Okay, there are 5 steps that we know, based on incredible science and loads of studies, that individuals can take to lower toxic inflammation in their bodies. The first one is incorporate the right type and the right amount of movement. Number 2, you want to set yourself up for restful, restorative sleep. Number 3, you want to engage in the proven strategies to help you de-stress. Number 4, you want to eat right. You want to eat the anti-inflammatory foods and avoid the pro-inflammatory foods. And number 5, you want to reduce belly fat. In this free training, I'm covering the 3 lifestyle strategies, okay? All right? Now, before I get to the first, of course, you need to know the difference between healthy inflammation and toxic inflammation. You would not be long on this earth if your cells and your tissues were not able to mount a healthy inflammatory response. That is because healthy inflammation is actually how the body heals. It's how your tissues heal. It's also how your body defends itself against things from the outside that could be damaging to it, that could be bad for it. Think viruses, think bacteria, think toxins coming in from the environment. So healthy inflammation is its purpose in your body, its good purpose, is healing and self-defense. Healthy inflammation is thus highly targeted. It's very targeted. It's not happening all over the body. It's very targeted and it's transient. It's not continuous, okay? Now that is in sharp contrast to this toxic inflammation that this program is addressing. Here's the deal. Anytime inflammation extends in space or time beyond the point that it's serving a useful purpose in healing or self-defense, it becomes bad for you. It becomes damaging, disruptive, toxic, okay? That's the inflammation we're dealing with. Medically, it's often referred to as meta-inflammation. Meta-inflammation. And this meta or toxic inflammation, unlike healthy inflammation, is chronic, it's all the time. You're having it 24/7, and it is full body. It's systemic. We call that systemic. It is literally impacting all of your tissues and cells and all of your organs. So it's systemic, it's full body, it's continuous, it's chronic. And it's more smoldering, it's a lower level. You know, if you cut yourself or burn yourself, you know how it gets red and warm and a little hot, you know, at the site that you had this injury. That's actually your feeling and seeing with your own eyes inflammation. And that's a more intense level of inflammation, right? That targeted inflammation. But this toxic inflammation is below that threshold. It's a more smoldering. But it's exceedingly damaging because it is full body and because it is continuous, all right? So that's the inflammation we are addressing. Strategy number 1, leverage the magic of movement. I'm going to teach you how to incorporate the right type and the right amount of movement for maximal benefit. I want you to know, before I get to those things, two important things. One is that movement is arguably the quickest and in the here and now, we call that acutely, the most potent way to diminish inflammation in your brain and body. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Movement is arguably the quickest and most acutely potent way to knock inflammation, this toxic inflammation, back that may be happening in your body. How? Why? Well, it just so happens that movement can assuage and dial down this toxic inflammation through 6 different ways. Therein lies its power. The first one is when we move our bodies and use our muscles, think physical activity or exercise, it sends a signal to our immune system to activate the anti-inflammatory pathways. So there are a whole host of anti-inflammatory pathways that will get activated when you simply use your muscles to move. This is amazing, right? The second way movement helps is movement is a very, very powerful modulator of immune cell activity. So it is your immune system and your immune cells that actually are involved in inflammation. They're involved in dialing it back and dialing it up. And when you exercise, it has a huge influence over how your immune cells behave. And this is what happens. Immune cells and chemicals that are involved in quieting inflammation go kind of on overdrive when you move. And then on the flip side, when you move, immune cells that are involved in driving inflammation and chemicals that drive inflammation that these immune cells may release, those things get dialed back. So you get this kind of double bonus in terms of favorably modulating your immune system to lower inflammation. We also know that movement, exercise particularly, will reduce belly fat. So important. You may not know it, but it's where you weigh that matters most. When it comes to body fat and your health, it's about location, location, location. The fat that we deposit underneath our skin, right? We call that sub-Q fat. Although we may not like the way it looks, it really is not driving inflammation. It really is relatively harmless. It's just storing extra calories. That is in sharp contrast to fat that gets deposited around your abdominal organs, fat that gets deposited like in your liver. We call that visceral fat, also known as belly fat. It's what makes the belly protrude out. It's exceedingly toxic. It's a very abnormal fat. Those fat cells literally behave, belly fat cells behave like an endocrine organ. They are just constantly spewing out, they're like glands spewing out pro-inflammatory molecules called cytokines and chemokines. Constantly. They're just constantly putting these out. So if you have got some level of intra-abdominal fat, I mean, again, it's one of the big problems with it, is it's inflaming your entire body 24/7, 24/7, 24/7, right? And one thing great about physical activity, it doesn't really help us reduce sub-Q fat, so you need to know that. Exercise is not effective at all for really weight loss. It's great for weight control, but it does help diminish this visceral fat. So that's awesome. The next thing about exercise, I think this is I don't know if this is third or fourth one, is that exercise also has specific antioxidant effects. You've probably heard of free radicals. You've probably heard of antioxidants. You can get antioxidants from your food, healthy food, woohoo. You can get them from supplements, but guess what? Your body is endowed with 3 very, very powerful innate antioxidant systems: catalase, superoxide dismutase, and glutathione. And when you move, those pathways are turned on, and they kind of put the antioxidants you get from food and supplements to shame, right? So this is amazing. So why is it good to be able to counter oxidation in the body? Why is this antioxidant effect good? Well, at the molecular level in the body, the final common pathway of damage almost across the board is through oxidation. So oxidation damages your cells, and anytime your body perceives something has been damaged, what does it do? It mounts an inflammatory response. Okay, remember I already told you that inflammation is how your body heals. So you don't want a lot of excessive damage from free radicals because it's going to incite more inflammation. The next way that exercise can help you decrease inflammation is it's going to lower your insulin level. So you probably heard of insulin. It's like the mother hormone of metabolism, but it's also the mother hormone of gaining weight. It's your fat hormone. When insulin's released into your system, it is telling your body, store fat and don't go burn it. It prevents you from burning fat, right? So insulin's a fuel storage, fat storage hormone. You don't want it high, and you don't want it high a lot. And one thing great about exercise is when we use our muscles, it sucks insulin and glucose out of the bloodstream. And anytime we can lower insulin down, it has an anti-inflammatory effect. I didn't tell you why. Well, insulin itself is kind of a pro-inflammatory hormone. So we always want insulin as low as we can get it, okay? The final way that exercise can help us with decreasing inflammation is it's fantastic for your gut microbiome, and it encourages a diversity of your gut microbiome. So the gut microbiome is this wild menagerie of microbes. The bacteria are the ones that matter the most to your health, at least at this point in science. There are trillions of them, and they have an essential role in your health. They're kind of like running the show in the body, and you need a healthy, diverse microbiome to have a healthy immune system and to have a healthy, normal inflammation response and not have these crazy toxic inflammation. And you need to know that about 90% of your immune system is in the lining of your gastrointestinal tract, one cell layer away from these gut microbes. So of course, we now know these gut microbes, again, the microbiome is very much modulating inflammation. And healthy microbiomes translate to less inflammation in the body. And what defines a healthy microbiome, the biggest feature is it's got lots of diversity of species of bacteria. The more we move, the more diversity of good gut bacteria we get, okay? All right, so those are all the different ways, so you can see how powerful exercise is for quieting this bad inflammation. You say, okay, Dr. Rain, I'm getting this, I'm motivated, what do I need to do? So what I'm going to share with you is the perfect plan of action. And before I even give you that, I want you to know that any movement counts and any movement will help you. Do you know if you've been sitting on your fanny, like in a chair or whatever, for an hour or more, and you just simply get up and walk from point A to point B, you're just up for 2 or 3 minutes, whatever, we can measure a decreasing inflammation within usually a couple of minutes, okay? So any movement counts, but the ideal prescription is as follows. Number 1, you want to make sure you're engaging in some type of aerobic activity. Aerobic activity is where you're moving your body through space such that your heart rate and your breathing rate go up, right? And the goal is, and it could be like brisk walking or jogging or basically any sport. It could be sweeping your floors. It could be vacuuming. There's all kind of ways you can move, right, to get your heart rate and your respiratory rate up. The goal is to eventually get to, or more quickly get to, at least 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity a week. So that would be like 30 minutes of brisk walking 5 days a week. Moderate aerobic activity is enough movement to get your heart rate up, but not enough that you're hurting. So I'm not telling you have to subject yourself to pain. So discomfort is no excuse here, because I'm not telling you have to be uncomfortable, okay? And there's so many things that will get you to that level. If you like it and it's safe for you and you want to kick it up a notch and move from moderate to vigorous, woohoo, you can get away with less of a time expenditure. So that would be 75 minutes of vigorous aerobic activity over the week. So that would be like 25 minutes 3 times a week of like a jog or a hard swim or spinning or something like that, okay? And with vigorous physical activity, you are in the range of being slightly uncomfortable, okay? All right, now, and you can build up to this. Most athletes don't start doing what they need to be doing right away. They kind of build up to it, right? So you start it where what works for your life. The second component that's very, very important is resistance training. And again, the perfect prescription is that you want to build in a couple of days a week. It could be more, but at least a couple of days a week where you're doing some resistance work. And resistance work is when your body is stationary, but you're pushing or pulling against a force. So this is going to be like weight machines. This could be free weights or the weight machines. It could be yoga. It could be Pilates. It could be bands. It could be using your own body weight, like holding plank or doing push-ups. And the great thing about resistance work is it doesn't require very much time to do it. You can get a full upper body workout easily in 12 minutes, right? And they're free. They're apps where you can get this information like free, where you can just do it at home. You don't have to go to a gym or anything like that. Anyway, but the resistance work is important. All right, that's the second element. And the final element is, if you could, on 2 of the days that you're doing some aerobic activity, do a little bit of HIIT training. HIIT, that stands for high intensity interval training. Super, super hot and the exercise physiology and the health and the medicine field, because we're finding out there's something magic that happens when we very briefly kick our heart rate up into these really high levels, typically at least 85% of your max heart rate for 20, 30 seconds, maybe a minute. You can't do that longer than a minute, or then you just can't sustain it that long, right? So you really kick your heart rate up by going faster, going harder for just a little bit, and then you totally slow down and can move at a really easy, slow pace for 1, 2, 3 minutes, and then you repeat that, right? And so bottom line is, if you can incorporate anywhere from 4 to 10 minutes of some HIIT training. Okay, so again, it could be I'm going to get on the spinning bike and spin as hard as I can for 30 seconds, and then I'm going to rest a minute, and then I'm going to repeat that. Or I'm going to go as hard as I can for a minute, then I'm going to rest 3 minutes, and I'm going to repeat that, right? So just a little bit, a couple times a week, if you can really kick that heart rate up. It has some additional magic that you can't get from these other 2 things that I mentioned. I want to say, please always, if you have any chronic health condition, if you take any prescription medication, you must check with your physician, your healthcare provider, to before you embark on an exercise regimen, to be sure it's safe for you. And I also do want you to know that overtraining, over-exercise actually drives inflammation. So, going too hard, too long, and not allowing your body to recover, it can actually be a source of excess inflammation. But I really seriously doubt anyone watching this is doing that. Maybe some of you that already have a pretty intense regimen. Anyway, but I thought that was important to mention. So just know any movement counts. You take things at a pace that works for you, but that prescription I just gave you is the perfect prescription. If you have to start somewhere and you can only do one thing, you're going to do the aerobic activity, right? Can you just take a walk? And I want you to know, to get the energy you need, because that's a big problem for a lot of people. They don't have the energy they want to be able to get up and move. To get that energy you need to want to go exercise, and to also leverage that exercise for your health, then you want to make sure you listen to the end and find out about this third secret bonus that I'm going to offer you, okay?